I think this has to be one of the most requested videos, and because I love you guys and I want you to be happy and well fed, today I'm going to show you how to cold smoke chicken thighs in 3 different ways. So in this video you're going to get 3 different methods of preparing the thighs, 3 different flavor profiles, and also in the end 3 different products that you can enjoy over the holidays. The start of the show is going to be the chicken thigh, and we're going to need 4 chicken thighs for each and every of these recipes. Let's start with one of the most important steps of this whole process, which is cleaning or trimming the chicken thighs to get them ready for the marinating process. But before you even take the chickens out of the fridge, please wash your hands, because you're going to be working with raw meat and you don't want to bring anything into it, because this is what's going to feed you and potentially your family in the future. So wash your hands properly. Go on, I'll wait. 30 seconds, soap and all. We don't want to debone, de-skin. We don't want to remove more than just the bits that you're going to see me cutting, which is the extremities, something from the sides and some very bad parts that really will not add anything to the final product. Now don't worry, all of these small bits and pieces that you're going to get from 12 chicken thighs, if you're going to go with all 3 recipes, we can freeze them, put them on the side, and bones as well into a bag into the freezer. When everything is done, we can use that to make like a nice stock or a soup or a broth, whatever. You know, we use every single piece of it. We're not going to waste anything. The Polish recipe is amazing because well, mainly because it's my mother-in-law's recipe and she's an amazing cook. So much so that every time we eat at her place, I end up asking for the recipe. So I would strongly encourage you guys to give this one a shot, because it's easy to make, it's delicious, and it's something that potentially you haven't tried before, unless you're from Poland. What you're going to need for this recipe is 100 grams or 4 tablespoons of pickling salt, 5 grams or 1 teaspoon of black peppercorns, 15 grams or 3 cloves of garlic, 2 grams or 2 teaspoons of marjoram dry, 5 grams or 3 medium sprigs of fresh rosemary, and 2 liters of water. What we're going to do first is take 2-liter pot or even larger than that and add our water in. After that, we're going to mix the dried ingredients first and take the rosemary. Before we put the rosemary in, we want to bruise it just to release and activate all those essential oils that are going to make this brine more aromatic and more strong, so it penetrates the meat as deep as possible to give us the best result. Now when it comes to the garlic, the easiest way to peel it is to crush it, either by pushing on the side of your blade or with the palm. We want to crush it and put it on the side for at least 2 minutes, because that's going to activate some chemical compounds inside that's called allicin, and that has medicinal and beneficial properties. After that, you want to put it to a garlic press or chop it really small, just be careful with your fingers, and add it to the pot. Once the garlic is in, you want to take a spoon, wooden spoon would be best, and just mix everything together. And after that, you're going to put it on the stove on medium-high heat with a lid on top of it and let it boil. You want it to see rolling boils inside. Once you've achieved the rolling boils, you want to take the pot off the heat and remove the lid, because we want this brine to cool off properly, like room temperature. Yeah. Now if you want to speed up the cooling down process, you can use an ice bath to make sure that this is going to be finished in like 10 minutes maximum, or you can keep some water back when you start the brine process. So let's say instead of 2 liters you put 1.8 liters in, and now when it's all done, you can add 200 grams of ice cubes inside, so you get the same amount without overflowing or, I don't know, diluting your recipe too much. Just make sure that your brine is cold enough, meaning it has to be about 20 Celsius or 68 Fahrenheit. And the best way to know that is by investing in one of these thermal probes. Now, I know a lot of people have these things in their houses. This is not good because this is just a surface probe. So it's only going to tell you what's on the outside. What you want to do is go inside of the brine, in the middle of it, just like you would probe a piece of meat to see what's the temperature on the inside. So this is the best type of kitchen probe that you could get. Yeah, you don't want the brine to be too hot because then it's going to scald the meat, the chicken, and that's going to, you know, derail the whole process. It's not what we want. Once the brine is cold enough, you want to get yourself a decently large metal bowl. It has to be large enough to account for the 2 liters of water plus the 4 chicken thighs that's going to displace the water. So the 2-liter pot is not going to be good anymore. Make sure that you put everything that's in that brine, including the solid herbs and everything. We want that process to keep on marinating throughout the 3 days that it's going to stay in the fridge. After that, take a piece of cling film, cover it, and put it in the fridge for 3 days. At the end of day 3 of marinating, you want to take a large pot, I would say 4 liters, and put 2 liters of fresh water into it. Then put that pot on the stove and add some spices. Now, you can add whatever spices you like, you love. We went with a very basic, chicken spice, in the sense of 1 teaspoon of allspice, 1 tablespoon of black peppercorns, and 2 bay leaves. Again, we went with fresh bay leaves. You go with 4 dry ones if you don't have the fresh ones, but clean slate, you can do whatever you prefer. Once you decided on the spices that you're going to go with, let that pot boil. Add the lid onto it and make sure that it actually boils. Once the water has boiled, put the temperature to low, and now it's a good time to take the chicken out with the brine. Rinse the brine off your chicken only when you're sure that the water is not boiling, it's still. Then you want to add your chicken thighs in, because if it's rolling boil, then it's going to overcook your chicken thighs, and we don't want that. We want that water to be around 80 Celsius or 175 Fahrenheit, because this is a safety step. We want to raise the internal temperature of the chicken to 75 Celsius or 167 Fahrenheit to make it safe to eat, but we don't want to overcook it. This cooking process is going to take between 20 and 40 minutes. So this is the point where you want to take this kitchen probe or thermal probe out again and probe the middle of that chicken thigh often, like at least after the first 20 minutes, start probing it. And once you hit 75 or 167 Fahrenheit, that's done. You can take them off, but make sure you probe each and every one of them, not just one, because each chicken thigh is different, so the thickness may be different in all of them. Once you reach 75 or 167, stop the stove and take the chicken thighs out, put them on a plate or on a tray, because now we want them to drain all that water off and semi-dry up. When you probe it, you want to go as close to the bone as possible. As you can see, I've reached the bone. And when you probe it in the meantime, until you reach the ultimate temperature, try to probe it in this area here, because this is where most of the blood is going to be at. So as you can see here, there's still some blood coming out, but you want this to coagulate. Now that we reached the Romanian recipe, you need to know that I'll be a bit biased because it's my grandma's recipe and I grew up eating this, especially in the cold months, but not necessarily, because she used to make this specialty item for us all the time because it's easy, it's delicious, and it can be done with most of the ingredients that everybody has in their cupboard or in their home. For this, you'll need the following ingredients: 2 fresh bay leaves or 4 dried ones, 3 grams or 1 teaspoon of black peppercorns, 23 grams or 1 tablespoon of rock salt, 2 grams or 3 medium sprigs of fresh thyme, 15 grams or 3 garlic cloves, 2 grams or 1 teaspoon of ground pepper, 9 grams or 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika, and lastly 100 milliliters of white wine. The Romanian recipe is a dry rub, so what you want is to mix all your dry ingredients. Take the time and bruise it before adding it to the mix, and do the same with the fresh bay leaves. Bruise them, don't worry if they just disintegrate and break into tiny bits and pieces, that's what you want. Crush your garlic, put it to the press or chop it really small. Mix everything until it comes together in a nice, beautiful, sexy rub. And then you can start the massaging process. Now brush up your masseuse skills and give these chicken thighs the time of their life, making sure that you get this rub into every pore, every nook and cranny. And don't be afraid to put it under the skin as well. You know, keep it as a thin layer, but put it under the skin, because that's only gonna penetrate the meat and not just give it an amazing flavor, but also is gonna change the color. All of that paprika and pepper, so go crazy. And you know you've done a good job if you have all 4 chicken thighs properly marinated and covered in the rub and you have nothing left. Take the chicken thighs and put them in a container or a bowl, and now, just now, add the 100 milliliters of white wine on top of them. Now don't worry, the wine is going to mainly stay on the bottom of the container or the bowl that you're going to be using, but in these 3 days we'll have to take the bowl out twice a day and just move the chicken thighs around so they all get as marinated as possible in this new juice that has been created, the spices from the rub and the white wine. The American style recipe is something that we stumbled upon a while back when we were looking for something different from the stuff that we grew up with, and it stuck with us. We just love it, so we wanted to share it with you guys. Also, we'll put the link of the original recipe that we took our inspiration from in the description box. So if you're looking for something different, just like we were, check the recipe in the description box and see if something over there is going to resonate with you, just like it did with us. For this recipe you'll need 72 grams or half a cup of brown sugar, 18 grams or 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, 4 grams or 2 teaspoons of ground cumin, 5 grams or 2 teaspoons of dried mustard, 15 grams or 3 garlic cloves, 15 grams or 2 teaspoons of rock salt, 2 grams or 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper. Take all your dry ingredients and put them together on a tray or whatever work surface you're going to be using. In case you couldn't find dry mustard powder, you can get mustard seeds like we did and just grind them into a fine dust. You can either use a coffee grinder, a spice grinder, or if you have half an hour and you want to bulk up your biceps, you can use a mortar and pestle. Honestly, use a grinder because you're going to get a higher quality product and you're going to avoid the muscle cramps and all of that embarrassing huffing and puffing that you're going to be doing after 3 or 5 minutes. Add the dry mustard and the pressed garlic to the mix, trying to get it as incorporated as possible because this is going to be your dry rub. In my opinion, this rub is the sexiest of them 3 because of the brown sugar and the colors and the glistening that it adds once you add it to the chicken. And I'm really curious to see if any of you are going to try it. How was your experience through this whole process? Did you find it hard? Did you find it easy? Is it something that you guys do at home, especially those of you watching from the States? Just let me know in the comments. Really curious to find out. By now you should be a black belt masseuse. So, don't be shy. Get this amazing rub deep into these thighs. Rub it all over. Don't let any skin piece uncovered, uncoated with this rub. And as before, you've done a good job if there's no rub left on your tray. After this, take a bowl, put the chicken thighs that have been coated with the rub into that bowl, clean film it and put it into the fridge again for 3 days. And the same as with the Romanian recipe, twice a day in these 3 days you want to take it out and just mix it all together. Don't be afraid, you're going to see that this specific one is going to release a lot of moisture. You'll see quite a lot of juice at the bottom, even if you didn't add any liquids. But it's fine, it's just the salt and the sugar, marinating, making those amazing juices on your chicken thighs. If you followed all 3 recipes and you have survived this whole process until now, then congratulations, because you're about to be a very well-fed human being. So now that you have these 3 containers in front of you, all clean filmed, you want to make space in your fridge and keep them there for 3 days. Now, the Polish recipe will have to be left alone for 3 days. You don't want to move it, you don't want to mix it because it's a wet brine. So the brine is already all around the chicken thighs, marinating it. For the other 2 recipes though, twice a day for the 3 days of marinating, you're gonna wanna take them out and just move them around. Please make sure that before you do this, you wash your hands properly. Again, we don't wanna add any bugs, bacteria, and you know, things that are gonna eat the food before you're gonna have a chance to. Hey there, it's the 4th day now in the morning, and basically what we need to do now is get all of the chickens into the smokehouse, and we're going to leave them here for the whole day to properly dry out. We want them to be dry because otherwise the smoke is not going to stick or penetrate properly the meat. So this is what we're going to do today. Just the Polish recipe chicken I'm going to put on the top most layer of the smokehouse because it's already been cooked, so I don't want any uncooked juices from the other recipes to drip on it in this time that's going to dry out. So this part is going to go on the top shelf, and the other two can go on the next 2 levels. Quite dry, but not frozen. I thought it's gonna freeze. It's -5, so this is a good insulator as well. Okay, let's start the fire. I've pre-soaked some of the apple and the cherry wood yesterday. So I left it for 24 hours in some water here, and just now when we started smoking, I've started to soak some walnut husks or shells. Not too many because I don't have too many, but I'll keep them for the last smoking session at the end to give it some, first of all, beautiful color, a more reddish color, which as well is going to get it from the cherry tree, but that's going to finish it in a nice way, and also is going to give it a more nutty flavor, because that's the whole purpose of the walnut shells. Some people also use pecan shells or pistachio shells. I would love to try pistachio shells in the future, but they're very expensive and you have to have a lot. We'll experiment and see what works best, but that's why we soaked the wood before, because we want something to create a thick, dense smoke to get the job done, because we're going to be smoking them for 6 hours. So in 6 hours, you know, we need to get it done. Otherwise, if you just use dried wood, it's going to burn really quick and not give you the amount of smoke that you need. Some people argue for both sides that you shouldn't use soaked wood because the smoke is too strong, that you should use, like, I use both. I use the first stages with dried wood to make myself a really decent layer of coals, and then I'm adding small bits and pieces like this of soaked wood. So that works out for us. Now I'm gonna put the polish recipe into a separate bowl because it's already cooked. I already put them on the top shelf so that nothing drips on them from the other two recipes that are raw meat. Now that we got the meat home, the house is starting to finally smell like Christmas, or part of the smell that we associate with Christmas. But we're not done yet. We still have to take a step to finish this product, because whereas the Polish version is already cooked and technically ready to eat right now, the Romanian and the American still need to be processed, still need to be cooked in order to make them safe to eat. So let's jump straight away into those methods and be done with this, because I cannot wait to eat it. The way we're gonna finish the American thighs is by cooking them in the oven. To do that, you need to preheat your oven at 180 Celsius or 355 Fahrenheit. And once you achieve temperature, you want to put your chicken thighs on a baking tray, and make sure that you use a baking mat or some baking paper, because we want to avoid the chicken thighs sticking to the baking tray itself because of the sugar. Once all of that is done, put your tray with the chicken in the oven and cook it for about 20 minutes or until the core temperature of the chicken thigh reaches 75 Celsius or 167 Fahrenheit. After 20 minutes, take the tray out and probe it. Make sure that you use a kitchen probe like this, not a surface one, and probe as deep and as close to the bone as possible. That's going to give you the safest indication. To finish the Romanian chicken thighs, we're going to steam them because that's the traditional way of doing it. If you want to oven them at the same time with the American ones, nobody can stop you, but I'm going to do it like this because I love the specific flavor that steaming gives it. To steam the thighs, you can use a couple of methods. Classic conventional home steamer like this, a bamboo steamer like this, but I'm gonna use just a basic pot and a couple of sticks because that's how grandma used to do it. She didn't have all of this, you know, electronics in the house back in the day. So she just used the pot and hung the chicken thighs on top of 2 branches, 2 twigs, and the water would just come up and steam the whole product. You want to put about 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch of just plain old water at the bottom of the pot. 3 sticks or 3 dowels like I'm using here, just cut them to the size of the lip of your pot. Put 2 of them to give you stability and strength, and then the third one is going to be the one that has the chicken thighs hanging on that and is going to be in a cross inside of the pot. That's the setup. It's very simple, very basic, and you need to cover it with a lid that you made from aluminum foil because the lid of the pot is not going to cover it properly and therefore releasing a lot of the steam. If you don't have aluminum foil, you can still use the lid of your container, but you will see that a lot of the steam is going to escape, so keep an eye on it and just have some boiling water on the standby and just top it up if the water starts to evaporate too much. After 30 minutes, you want to take a probe like this and just probe inside the deepest part of the meat next to the bone and see that you achieve 75 Celsius or 167 Fahrenheit. Now, for this specific method, if you don't have a probe or a thermometer that can, you know, indicate this temperature, there's an old, you know, technique that you can use, which is steam it 15 minutes per centimeter of meat. So that implies that you would have to measure the thickness of your chicken thigh at the thickest point and then calculate how many centimeters you have and 15 minutes per centimeter. It wouldn't be a food video if we wouldn't try the finished product, so we'll get straight away into it. You know it's going to be delicious, you know it's going to be freaking amazing and something that you want to try right now. So I'll just go quickly through each and every one of them so you can run away, buy your chicken and start the 5-day process and just get it as well. I'll start with the American one because visually it looks the best, the sexiest, the nicest, and I think from a just smoke point of view, this is the mildest, but at the same time you can smell a lot of the other ingredients. I think accidentally I just kind of made it as barbecue flavor because there's the sugar and there's the mustard powder, the smokiness, the actual smoke, which in barbecue sauce they usually add liquid smoke. It just tastes amazing. I think the sweetness is what makes it stand out so much, but that's it. I'm gonna move to the next one. The Polish recipe seems to be the smokiest because I think being cooked already and then quite dry or drier than the other ones, it received more smoke deep inside of the muscle tissue. Very nice. You don't feel the marjoram almost at all, but the rosemary comes out really strong, and I think the rosemary and the smoke are the dominant flavors here. And if you want something that's really smoked chicken, like pure essence of smoked chicken, if you're a lover of smoked meats, you should make more chicken thighs with the Polish version because you don't feel the garlic, you don't feel much apart from the smoke and the rosemary. So for all of you hardcore smoke meat eaters out there, I think the Polish recipe would be perfect for you. With the Romanian one, I mean, straight off, you get the wine, super strong wine smell and smoke, but the wine and the garlic are really, really forward. I mean, it's delicious. It's the recipe and the flavor that I grew up with. It's amazing. I love the heavy garlic footprint of it because I love garlic, and the smoke is subtle, and all of them are so tender and juicy at the same time. So here we are at the end of this 5-day process with, I hope, something really special that you can enjoy and enjoy with your loved ones. Before we're gonna say our goodbyes, I just want to mention that many people are afraid, or they don't really like to see pink chicken. Now, you shouldn't, because that means it's undercooked. But in this situation, the chicken is going to be a bit pink because of the salt and because of the seasoning and the 3 days of marinating process that preserved the meat the way it was before it was cooked. So don't worry, as long as you probe everything like I did and you reach the 75 Celsius temperature or 167 Fahrenheit, you have nothing to worry about. That being said, now that you have the finished product, you can do a couple of things with it. You can eat it straight away, like I'm about to do now for lunch, and then have a nap, because that's a lot of meat. Or you can preserve it even further, because it's a smoked and cooked product. You can keep it for a couple of weeks in the fridge without any worry. But if you want it to last longer, you can either vacuum seal it in plastic bags and keep it in the fridge or in a cold, dark room that you have in your house, or vacuum seal it and put it in the freezer, and that's gonna guarantee at least 6 months in the freezer. 6 months and no more than that in the freezer, because after that you develop freezer burns. I know that this is not gonna last too long for us. Hopefully some of it is gonna last until Christmas, but no promises. Maybe we're gonna have to do some more. If you liked this video and found it useful, please like, subscribe, click that bell so you stay connected to us, because we will do a lot of these videos, especially because Christmas is coming, and traditionally a lot of smoked and cured meat is present on the Christmas table. And if you don't have a way to smoke your meats right now, I'm gonna link here the video where we build our own smokehouse from reclaimed materials and as cheap as we could. Everything from the smokehouse itself to the stove and everything that went into it. Okay, no more talking. Goodbye.